Okay, yeah. Oh, you saw the movie? What'd you think?
So I quite enjoy this film. I feel like this movie, generated way too much controversy. In some ways, it reminds me of the film Joker from I think 2019, which was
Oh,
also like just the
thinker.
so controversial, but for reasons that ultimately like didn't really pan out to be accurate. Like people just making all these assumptions about the film and its message and its politics, only for the film to actually come out and it be a pretty milk toast message, all things considered. I don't think there's anything that's all that radical about that film, despite the way that people were talking about it and like hyping it up as this incredibly dangerous movie that's going to inspire violence across the country or whatever. In the same way, this movie came out, and before it came out, a lot of people were like, fear mongering about it, saying it was actually going to fuel tensions and, lead to conditions that could cause a real civil war. People were saying it was just like increasing the division in our country, that it was unnecessary, all this kind of stuff. But when I actually went to see the movie, I was surprised by how little of the film is actually about an American Civil War. I think, the movie, for the most part, almost could have been set in any warfare setting. It could have been set even in a different country, quite frankly. I think it's mostly a movie about photojournalism and, I guess journalism itself. It just happens to be in the context of an American Civil War. But I really think the Civil War thing is kind of more of a gimmick than anything, and not necessarily a bad gimmick. It definitely succeeded in getting people interested and kind of seizing on a topical notion and using that to broach an interesting discussion about photojournalism and sensationalism and the media in general. So I thought the film was perfectly well made. Another decently directed movie by Alex Garland, whose work I've quite enjoyed up until this point. I did have some issues with the film that aren't very related to the issues other people have had with the film that we can get into in a bit. But
Gavin wants justice for Andy. No.
He wants the gunshots to be quieter.
The gunshots, the sound editing in the film, I thought was amazing. But anyway, I'll
give the film for sure.
I didn't think that the movie was as I just didn't think it was as worthy of the controversy that it generated. And I feel like a lot of people just kind of decided what they wanted to feel about the film before they even saw it, or just sort of projected what they wanted onto it. But I'm very open to your criticisms of the movie, Griffin, because like I said, there are some parts of this film that I have issues with. There's some lines in the movie that are downright cringy. I'll be the first to admit that. And I think that there's some screenwriting issues in general,
okay,
which
covering your bases.
All right, you're good. You go ahead. The floor is yours.
No. I listen. This is not going to be a fight or a battle or a debate about the movie. Like, it's great if you liked it or whatever. I actually don't think there was that much controversy about the movie. Most of the reaction I see is it stinks, and that's about it. Like, which doesn't. And I think that the lack of even having anything to argue about with the film is one of the biggest detriments of the film, because the film ultimately doesn't have anything to say. It's very Obama core in that it places itself in like a political premise, but doesn't really have anything to say about that premise. Yet it's the premise infects things and demands answers, yet you're never given them as an audience. I feel like, well, Jesse Plemons'
the Red Dawn remake with Josh.
Here's a few positives I'll throw up from the top. The sound effects were great. Jesse Plemons can elevate any film. The White House siege would have been cool if it had been wrapped into any narrative that was like legible. And ultimately, like, for a film that, like, it reminds me of the way that a lot of liberals, who are traditionally people making, writing, and directing film and TV right now in terms of political ideology, liberals, they're not like, their heads aren't in the sand. They may not be based, but they see everything that happens on Twitter. They read the tweets, they see the riots, they see the protests, they see the injustice, but they don't really know what to think about all of it. All they know how to do is present it and sort of shrug. I remember that there was this.
I would have voted for Obama a third time if I could have.
I would have voted a fucking fourth. There was this Captain America TV show where the villains were Antifa, And at the end of the series, there's like this like speech from like Winter Falcon or whatever his name is. And he's like talking about the banks and the system and everything that forces people to be isolated and go crazy. And then he's just like, but I guess we all need to do better. And then that was that. And that is like what I feel like most liberals struggle with in terms of storytelling right now. They want to tell a story about injustice and radicality, but they're not socialists. They're not leftists. And they kind of just like the way things are. And that's how I feel about Civil War. And then also, so my first question to you, Gavin, would be, what is because I understand that he's not trying to make a political movie. He's just setting it in a massively political premise. What is the story that's interesting about the photojournalism? Because for me, I found all of that narrative to be pretty bland as well.
I mean, I think that he draws some interesting parallels between like the role of a photojournalist and the role that he's playing as the director of the movie, which is kind of to capture these images and distill this tension without necessarily commenting on it or bringing his own perspective or preachy message to the table. So I think, those parallels are interesting, specifically with the place that the Kristen Dunst character is at in her career, kind of feeling like her work might not be as meaningful as she wants it to be. Mm-hmm. And Alex Garland's, point in his career as a director where he's talking about retiring, talking about, not really seeing the point anymore in doing what he does. And it kind of seems in the same way that, Kristen Dunst and the photojournalists aren't trying to add their perspective to the images they're shooting.
And isn't that a critique of the director himself with this film, that he isn't trying to say or feel anything? He's just presenting things the same way a war photographer does. Like,
but don't you think that there's value in war photography? Like, do you want there to be a caption under the photograph that says the way the journalist feels about the various sides in the war? Like, I think that it's usually better presented objectively, don't you think?
Well, I think that there is an inherent politicalness in like coming from a Western country to like film and photograph a country that you've destabilized with like the fruits of your, with your own country. So like there is always going to be something political in your existence or whatever. Like a white lady getting to fly in and take a picture of a black man set on fire. Like there's inherently something going on there.
Right.
While I still may have news and reporter value, like there might be something to be said.
Yeah, no, I actually do agree with that. And one of my criticisms of the film is that I kind of wish that it got a little bit more into the ethics of what exactly they're doing, because it does seem like they're so detached from the devastation and humanitarian loss that they're witnessing, and it does kind of seem like in a almost Nightcrawler sense they're just trying to get the best photo of the carnage. It's like,
I wish it had focused to that more, because I would have been more interested in that film.
Yeah, me too.
But I find that the ending, in a certain way, still has a self-serious to it. Like it was important that they were there to get him saying that line or something. Like, well, and I don't know if it is.
I think that it also has a lot. I think that the movie's also very much so about like just desensitization, and the Kaylee Spaney character goes through that, where at the beginning of the movie, she is incredibly affected by the images that she's seen and filming, or rather shooting. But towards the end of the film, I mean, not to spoil anything, but she's almost unmoved as she photographs something that earlier in the film certainly would have affected her quite a lot. So I think it's, somewhat commenting on the way that as a society, these images just do desensitize us to the point where we don't have much to offer other than just taking them in. But I do think there could have been more room for exploration and some, more delving into those nuanced concepts, because I agree it is ultimately not the most meaty film. It's in my opinion, it's a film that I enjoyed a lot, and I think there's a lot of great moments in the film. I do agree that it kind of fails to become something truly like cohesive or powerful in that sense. But I don't know. I feel like when people clamor for movies to have more political messaging, or like this movie's not lefty enough, or like this movie doesn't have the right political message, I'm like, do you really? I don't know if I really want it to. Like, I don't know if the movie would have been better if it had some like super unsubtle political message, even if it was one that I agreed with.
I'll tell you what would have made the movie better, and that's a great segue for me to jump in here. I want to talk about the real Civil War in America, everybody. I want to talk about the firm divide, the line in the sand that needs to be drawn And I'm here to say it as the proud Zoomer, okay? I don't need to jerk off any elderly in the audience and, whatever. I'm here for change. I'm here for innovation. And I'm here for the future. Now, the same way that I don't begrudge anybody who likes to have a vinyl record collection, I think that's great. I know a lot of homies that their like most prized possessions in the entire world are their vinyl collections. I know a guy like Gavin, one of his most prized possessions in the entire world is a Blu-ray collection, right? I love that for everybody. One thing that we stopped doing a long time ago was we said, you know what, wouldn't it be cool if you could listen to music when you weren't seeing it live? And you're like, wow, I could watch this anytime. And then during the pandemic, we got spoiled because the Warner Brothers HBO deal came out and they changed the game forever. They rizzed us all up real good. They said, you know what? Every movie that we drop this year, we're just going to let you stream it at the crib, right? We're just going to let you play that shit on the comfort of your house. Put on your Bluetooth Sony headphones, right? Connect, turn on the sound. These audio technicals, and just immerse yourself. Look at a 72-inch screen and have it all be yours. And you don't have to deal with any of these, fucking kids that shouldn't be in a movie anyway that's like rated R and at 9 o'clock, or these fucking guys that are
what was it? Sorry. What are you talking about? Are you talking about not going to the movies?
I'm talking about how they, it's actually an ableist issue is what I'm getting at. This is why it's political. They're actually attacking people who don't want to, that aren't able to leave their house, and unfortunately, they didn't make this movie, available for purchase on Amazon Prime.
It probably is right now. And
you have to watch it if it was available. I would have watched it if it was available. As it stood, I had to watch Ricky Stenicki instead because I was like, well,
Did you actually watch that shit?
Ricky Stenicki wasn't bad. It wasn't bad.
I heard it was fun. Yeah,
I laughed a lot while I was watching it.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, movies are available on streaming like sooner now than ever before. Like I just saw
at the same time when
Monkey
Beyonce
Man
drops her
on
album
VOD.
on Record Store Day. Guess what? It's also on Spotify. I'm just saying, whatever you like. I'm not judging anybody that goes and buys it on Record Store Day, plugs it into their record player, and listens to it like it's 1955. That's your right in America. Okay. But in the same way that I like to get my news on my laptop instead of with the fucking print guy when he throws it out my door, I'd like to be able to watch the movie as soon as it comes out on my own TV. I won't be silenced.
I thought this was actually one movie where the theatrical experience was quite important, mostly because of the sound design. I think that it would have been far less immersive on a small screen. Although I have nothing against watching movies on the small screen as well. But
there's nothing like the movies. There's nothing like the movies, folks. When the lights dim and you got Nicole Kidman there, fuck off, dude. That's how big is your TV? What, like 23 inches? What are we working with here?
Well, I'm working with the monitor in my office, which is
the monitor in your office is what you watch movies on?
No, I said the monitor in my office is bigger than 28 inches, so I'm not fucking gonna watch a movie on a TV that small.
TV size right now. Drop the specs.
The one that I most often watch TV on is 58 inches. Okay,
58 inches, and what are we talking? Are we talking 4K? Are we talking?
Oh yeah, for sure, 4K. Yeah, bought it. I just bought it the other day because my other TV, Gavin, was slightly.
Oh, you
bigger.
Finally got rid of that shit?
I didn't get rid of it. I'll show you guys. Actually, this is funny because I have a turnaround.
OLED. And
wow, you know what? Okay. My room is ghetto as fuck, but I'm pretty sure I can show you the old TV in here.
I guess Zach said no OLED. He's like, I don't want to see the true blacks. Okay,
nope, I don't care about any of that.
Let's talk about the whites.
I'm blind anyway. I'm not that sophisticated.
Zach's only asking about the white density.
I love how your camera can do that.
That's actually that's sick.
It doesn't go all the way around. I just learned, unfortunately, but whatever. Anyway, the TV Gavin remembers is on the ground. Nobody gives a fuck about that. Long story short is, guys.
Yeah. Wait, are you cutting the movie review off? You hated the movie review?
I didn't hate the movie review. You guys go on. I was longing to participate, so I was gonna change the subject. The gag was Griffin. If you want to interrupt, let's take a peek behind the scenes.
I don't know. We just went on this detour for so long, and I'm like, where are we? Where's the pack?
Where's the pack, Gavin?
I think you were saying that the political message of the film.
I don't care about that. Where do you rank his films now?
Okay,
Alex Garland.
That's the thing. I just want to come out here and say that one strike and one hit. I was like, oof, I was already on the fence about this. And then after everybody said, well, I wasn't super moved either way, that's why I didn't bother to see it. I loved Ex Machina, hated Men. That's my review of this movie.
I'm a Men defender. I think Men is a very underrated movie. And that's another movie that got like weirdly controversial for reasons I to this day don't even understand. Like, there's nothing.
It was bland. I didn't think it was controversial.
That's fair. I know that you just thought it was boring, and that's totally fair. It's not a movie for everyone, and I could see like why some people might not vibe with it or whatever. But like some people had an issue, I guess, with the message of the film or the politics behind the film. I never figured out what was so controversial about that movie either, but I just enjoyed it a lot as an experience. I thought it was psychedelic. I thought it was visually stunning, and it's probably my favorite Alex Garland film. Although I really also enjoyed Ex Machina, obviously.
Wait, you liked Men better than Ex Machina?
I think, yeah, it's from a visual standpoint, it's way more interesting. What? Like Ex Machina is a brilliant movie.
It's insane.
I love Ex Machina. I'm just like I'd rather rewatch Men probably. But what's your opinion on Men, Griffin? Because I feel like everyone has very strong feelings on it.
Men felt like half a movie. It really felt like it cut off pretty early and was sort of like the midpoint of the film when it ended. I always just like Ex Machina was interesting, still felt like it was not a full meal, but had some interesting thoughts. And I feel like each film has gone kind of like thinner since then. I think my favorite scene is the scene in Annihilation in the lighthouse with the alien. I think that scene, I still think about that. And I think he has a lot of like presence and there are interesting moments in his films, but I feel like each of his movies, like he's thinking less and less. And I'm like, can you think a little bit more? I don't know. Like, that's just my personal feeling on it.
You just heard from Cisco
metaphors of Men, but they feel useless and unnecessary and not interesting. Like it's not that I don't see what he's doing. It's like,
I guess I just don't need every movie to be like this brilliant, like political statement or statement in general. Like, I just think his films they're well made. He has an interesting sensibility. They're always full of like beautiful and experimental moments. And even if they don't add up into something that's like a masterpiece, like I just don't know if I need that from every movie. And with Civil War in particular, like I said, from an intellectual standpoint, I could definitely see how it could leave people wanting more. But again, just as a movie, as a story, I thought it was compelling, and despite some screenwriting issues, I wasn't ever really bored by it. Specifically, I think it's really a movie of great scenes. Like the Jesse Plemons scene is just fantastic. That could just be a short film essentially, and it says everything that the movie has to say almost. And you could say the same thing about a couple other scenes in the movie. But yeah, I'm not going to make the case that it's like a perfect film or that it even adds up into anything that's necessarily like truly profound. But I still thought it was like,
it was fine. Yeah. Good.
Yeah. I just thought it was like a good movie that was thought provoking in some ways. And again,
feel like I meet movies where they are. So like, for instance, I saw King Kong Godzilla and I kind of met it where it was.
You have to with that one.
And I feel like I do that with all sorts of different films. So it's like, I'm meeting Alex Garland at the tone and the presentation and some of just the presentation, just the craft of it. Like, I feel like I'm approaching it at where the craft is existing, which is like something that seems to be screaming, but not saying anything. Like, at least that's just how I feel like about it. But can you let my presentation screen in here? My window?
Oh yeah. Yeah. This is a pretty funny clip. I did see this one going around.
Did the audio work?
It's very low.
That's its job. That is the function of the left in a situation like this, is hands down, flat out, to win an election. And you do not win an election without usually persuading people of the other side to come and join you. And you don't do that by screaming at them and telling them they're unethical. And what I really want to do is remove what I see as dangerous extremists from occupying mainstream political parties.
Hey guys, it's our logo.
What the heck? They made it PC though. They made it PC. They were afraid to embody the true artistry. They're
not
the
trans.
Real image
We're trans
of George Washington. They were afraid. They wouldn't.
Georgina Rosetta Washington. Yeah. I mean, what do you think about that, Gavin?
I mean, I definitely think that you can get a sense of Alex Garland's sort of basic, centristy politics when you watch the movie. I don't think it's like so pervasive that it ruins the experience or anything.
Mhm.
Also, I just like, I don't really need my art to reflect my own personal ideology. Like
for
a lot of people had the issue with the Trial of the Chicago 7 movie. We briefly touched on that, the Aaron Sorkin film. They were like, this
I
was,
liked it.
I did too. Zach
We
and I
all
both really
liked
liked it. Yeah.
I thought that Sasha, speaking of Sacha Baron Cohen, we were talking about him briefly before the pod started. I thought he absolutely crushed it as Abby Hoffman, and that's a hard role to nail.
Yeah, it was a really good film. It was fun. It was even a little bit inspiring in that like cheesy kind of patriotic way that you want to resist, but can sometimes work in an Aaron Sorkin kind of context. So, I don't have a problem with movies that don't reflect my politics. I definitely think that Alex Garland is, unsophisticated when it comes to his analysis. And yeah, I think the movie potentially could have been more interesting if he had delved more into some like substantive political critiques from the left. But I also think that you just run the risk of, for one, alienating like the majority of the people that see it, and two, just doing it in a really heavy-handed and clunky way. I'm not sure if Alex Garland is even, a sophisticated enough storyteller to weave in the sort of themes that people are wishing he would have in a way that would have been satisfying anyway. It could have just, come off as like a dud and been like, oh yeah, as if we didn't fucking get the point already or something. Like something just heavy-handed. And you know what I'm saying? So I don't know. I would have been interested to see that, like try to be pulled off, but I don't know.
I would have liked to see a Game of Thrones type political thriller between the states where it's like the Count of Ohio approaches the Texas commander in the forest. Like I think that would be a hilarious, like very political specific way, but like not ever get into politics, but just like battles between states. Yeah, I don't know. Like I agree with you. I like a bunch of films that are made by conservatives or like even right-wing ideological in nature, and sometimes art can transcend all of that. And like, yeah, his like takes here don't like affect the film. Like I feel like the film, I still could have thought the film was good, even if he was like, vote blue no matter who. But yeah, I just it was just kind of like, it is what it is. And I'm sorry we've devoted so much time to it because I feel like even
I like talking about it. It's an interesting
not
film.
Worth hating. It's not worth hating. It's not worth like how
you
much
said you
time
thought
I
it was
spent
kind of boring,
complaining
right?
about
You said like Civil Bore.
Yeah, I crushed it. I got 10,000 likes in that and then deleted it.
I will say my biggest problem with the movie, and I feel like, it's kind of, I don't know. I feel like they could have been easily fixed with a few more rewrites potentially, but like just some of the screenwriting stuff felt really, really convenient or contrived. Like the fact that these journalists just think they're going to waltz into the White House and interview the president. I'm like, why the fuck would he let you? Like he's clearly barricaded himself away from everyone, and including journalists in the White House. Why do you think that he's going to grant you this interview? And then Kaylee Spaney's just like, I want to come with you. And they're just like, okay, you can come, even though that's a clearly terrible idea for obvious reasons. And it's kind of alluded that the other dude wants to fuck her or something, but they don't really go into that much. And it's just, it feels unrealistic that she would be along for the ride. So there were things like that I felt were pretty clunky from a screenwriting perspective that did make me cringe. And then there was also that one line that you brought up, I think on Circle Jerk, where they said the Antifa massacre, that I was like, come on, like that's fucking stupid. But
final thought, and then I'll let Zach talk about Wife Guy. The last thing I'll say is the film opens with like how the country fell apart, and it's all Black Lives Matter protest footage. Just like,
but it's like repurposed. It's not like saying that Black Lives Matter led to
it's not targeting it, but it's like it's showing the level of chaos from actual photo being on protest. It's not like being like, they're not like DEI did this or whatever. Be pretty hip. They'd be like on top of it if they got that.
That's a Daily Wire version. They're gonna remake it.
But like they do show these things, and I thought it was funny that they showed that instead of like actually doing any cool ass scenes where like a tank is blowing up Hollywood and like actually making a movie. Like they're just like, this is how the country fell. And it's like, brother, that happened. We're all still here. And I think that's a good tone setting for my reaction to the whole film. But I do respect, and I love that you're enjoying movies, Gavin. I love that you're at the theater. Fuck Zach.
Gavin, hold it.
That's
I
it
go to
for
the movie
today,
theater.
folks.
I go to the movie theater like the amount of a normal person, like maybe 6 or 7 times a year. I like going to the movies when it calls for it. I'll go on Christmas Day. You know, I'll go on Halloween. I like to go to the movies. I'll go a couple times during the summer for a blockbuster. You know what I mean? But I'm like, oh man, boy, do I want us to jump into the 21st century. Or if it's like I just want to see it, I'm like, let me put it up on my TV. Let me just watch it really quick. You know what I mean? And fuck everybody who kind of dissents from that, because I'll tell you what, all the famous people that made movies, I'll tell you what, they were watching them. They were watching them in private screening rooms in their house. And before that, you'd be like, how'd you fall in love with movies? They'd be like watching them on the TV in my house. So, miss me with all that. It has to be seen on a big screen to appreciate. Oh, you mean you didn't appreciate all these wonderful films when you were a kid and you watched them on TV? And those even had commercial interruptions. I get to pause this when I want to go to the bathroom. I get to go, get something out of my fridge that I actually want to eat and not something that's going to destroy my stomach while I'm trying to sit there for a while. You know what I'm saying? I get to enjoy myself. I get to live by my own decree. I'm in my own castle. You know what I'm saying? I am not to be fucked with. You know what I'm saying? That's why I'm happy to. There's 1,000 movies that I would love to watch that are already available for rent. I'm like, am I going to get out to the movie? I have to really want to see that shit. I didn't even.
Cassandra, don't encourage him, Cassandra.
Yeah. You know what I mean? At home now too, bro. I worked at a movie theater. It was my first real job where I got like a real pay stub where the government took Social Security and shit from me for
AMC.
So I'm good. I already ate my entire body weight in movie theater popcorn, and I would even try and dress them up by putting a bunch of pickled jalapenos on top. But no, I can't eat. Neither Gavin or I really ever eat popcorn like that anymore.